Always like the jazz thing. Go ahead.
Okay, we're doing some sessions here. This is Turley Richards. I'm his wife, Laura. We're doing number 6 in a series of sessions to try to introduce people to the memoirs that he's recently written and has published out called Blindsided. It's a story, his life story about all of the trials and tribulations that he's gone through and the joys in the music business and since losing his eyesight initially to a bow and arrow accident at the age of 4. So, session 6, and we were going to back up a little bit, and when we last left everyone, we were talking about how you had left your first manager, Norman Schwartz, but I want to back up a little bit. Initially, before you were signed with him, you were doing quite a bit of work, not for very much money, but quite a bit of work at some of the clubs around New York.
Greenwich Village, mostly.
Yeah. Okay, so now it's your turn.
Well, the Greenwich Village scene was really kind of cool. I just had a guitar walking around, what's that park? Washington Park, where people were playing. You lay your guitar case open and people throw money in it for you, and you try to survive on that. I ended up singing it at the Cafe Wa on McDougal and Bleecker. No, not Bleecker, Carmine, a little alley-like thing. And it turns out the 4 acts were Richie Havens, David Fry, Richard Turley, and Richard Pryor. And I don't know what happened to those other 3 acts. Anyway, so it was quite a thing. And that some of the names changed except Richard. Now we did, altogether we probably did 42 shows together.
Richard Pryor.
Richard Pryor, yeah. And I remained friends with Havens all the way till the day he died, so we did a bunch of concerts together. But Pryor was real special. He and I, he was same age, and he had quite a rough life. And
same name.
Yeah, and we kind of ended up being real close because of his trust in me that I was not a prejudiced person. The whole thing with that, he was very uncomfortable around white people, and he actually quoted something you'll read in the book that is hilarious, and I've repeated it over and over year after year. Had to change a particular word, but that was because it was Richard. But that's where I did around the village. I also went to the Half Note one time, which is a jazz place. Al Cohen, Zoot Sims, and all-star of jazz players were on stage, from Max Roach all the way to Hank Jones, Ray Brown, Jerry Mulligan, Sonny Stith. I'm trying to think. Oh, Stan Getz. And
that was a big one. That's
what made it work for me for this story. I got to sing there. They asked me to get up on stage. I'm back to the Olana. I had balls bigger than church bells. It was like to get up with those stars. And I scattered with them, and they all applauded me. And there's a cute story about Max Roach, what he said to me, so you'll get to read that. But just being with those stars. But it was probably a week or so later when the girl came up and handed me Norman Schwartz's name. So when I first went up to meet Norman, I sang for him. He flipped out over my singing. And while we were having the meeting, Stan Getz comes in because he managed Stan Getz. And I was thinking, oh, wow. And he goes, Stan, this is my new artist, Turley Richard, no S. And I looked at him real funny. Stan says, oh, you're the kid that came down to Half Note. God, man, this guy's a great singer. So I know I'm signing him. So I went back over and sat down and I wrote out Turley Richard. I'd been wanting to change my name anyway. I just didn't know what to change to. I think I was actually going to go with just the name Turley because a few artists were doing that back at that time. Mm-hmm. So he came back over and sat down and I said, look here. And he kind of turned red. And he has some sort of, I never have found
dyslexia.
A form of dyslexia.
Yeah.
He turned names around. He wouldn't say this is Gan Stetz or this isn't Get Stan, but if a name could be turned around. So I said, I love the way it looks. What's missing? He looked at it and he reached down and put an S on it, and Turley Richards was born in '64 now. So I'm 23 years younger.
Yeah,
That ought to make you happy.
yeah.
Put you 2 years older than me now, baby. So,
Wait a minute.
yeah.
I don't like that.
So that was kind of cool. And Richard and I met up again and I met up again in 66 or 7 out in Vegas. I'm foggy about a lot of years, so you guys all forgive me about when, because right around 67, 68 is when I was told I was going to go blind. And it was, I don't remember a whole lot of things. I kind of closed a lot of stuff down. But what was I going to mention? Oh, record deals.
Yeah, and next you were signed by Scandori and Shane. It was your next record.
Yeah, and they got me a deal with Columbia, and I was able to actually do my kind of music. Paul Tannen was my producer. He got an entire black man in the studio, and it was the great jazz R&B players, Bernard Purdy on drums, Chuck Rainey, um, Eric Gale, all those kind of people were on this session. And we had a record called I'm a Lonely Man. And Columbia had it out, and Granny White, who's a black dude, ran the black promotion for Columbia. The record was in the top 10 in a lot of stations all over the nation, black stations. And Columbia said, "Wow, we got us a hit." So they put a big old picture of blue-eyed, blonde-haired Turley Richards, and the record stopped playing overnight. And I mean, that's just the way it was. We weren't playing, the whites weren't playing the black artists in white stations. And so I think they thought they'd been spoofed. So they quit playing my record. So I had at least a top 10 record for a short time in the black market, Well, it's not the way I said, the black radio stations.
Well, it's what they said then.
Yeah.
So it's appropriate for the time.
But, things, so I'm signed with Scandor and Shane. They eventually had me on a tour with the Gene Pitney's Shower of Stars.
What a funny story that is, how that ended.
There's
too.
great stories in this. Yeah, there's some really good stories in that, especially as she said, the ending.
Yeah.
And then they sent me out on a tour with all people, the Kingsmen, Louie Louie. All right. Well, I didn't want to do it, but their leader, their band leader, Len Eastman, had left them in the middle of a tour, and so they asked me to please go help save this tour, or we're going to lose all this money. And I said, well, you're going to have to pay me a lot to go out and sing rock and roll, straight out rock and roll. So they did, and I went on that tour, and they were great kids. I was just maybe a year older than, maybe 2 years older than them. I was 25, 26. So, but it was a lot of fun, and there were some funny stories on
Life
that
on the
too.
road.
That was sleeping on a bus, riding around. Same thing on the one with Pitney. There are some great stories in there. A guy that claimed he was a boxer, and anyway, that turned out funny. And then I got a gun pulled on me in Atlanta.
I think women were involved in that.
At the Kit Kat Club, So it turns out I was supposedly messing with one of the women that turned out to be this guy's girlfriend, and he pulled a gun on me. So I mean, things crazy happen. I had the one I liked, the little black guy in Indiana, thought I used some sort of special powder to dance. Magic dust they put on the dance. And I said, give me some of that, because I was quite a dancer. So, that was a wonderful tour. I had fun with everybody.
What happened when you came home, though?
That was kind of a shock. I get home at 2 a.m, go to put my key in the door, and actually that was after the Pitney tour. Put my key in the door. I can't. The key is, I've been evicted. Well, it turned out what had happened, the guy that I was subletting from was subletting from someone else that you're not supposed to do a double sublet. Mm-hmm. And he was keeping my money and not giving it to that guy. So I got out on the street, man, and lost a bunch of my clothes, lost a guitar, and I mean, it was insane what happened on that. And I was basically homeless again. So I called my friend Mickey Clark. We'd been, roomed before, and we'd done things. So we got a place together. I can't remember what year that was.
You met Mickey, of all things, playing basketball.
Yeah, and that was in '65. I was playing basketball one-on-one with this guy. and I'm not going to tell the story, but it was a very funny story. The guy was of a different persuasion, and he didn't think I should be touching him while we're playing basketball.
And you're still friends with Mickey today?
Yeah, Mickey and I are still dear friends. I was his best man in 1969 for him and Sandy. And, you know, it's been I think he my best man. I think he was my best man at my wedding with the Torah.
I think we're out of time, Mr.
Yeah.
Richards.
Well, there you go. Anyway, that's the end of number 6. I hope you're enjoying these sessions. We really just wanted you to get to know who I am and to know Laura.
And
by the way,
is
Laura,
located.
I take my hat off to Laura because she's living with a guy and wrote a book with a guy who's ADHD and with 10,000 stories. Some of them are true.
So,
all right.
So let's go back to where they can get the book.
www.turleyrichards.com. It's right there where it says buy now. The book is $16.99 plus $3 shipping, and you get a CD with it that has 6 songs on it, and all the songs are related to the book. Also, you can go further in there, and I've got albums, downloads of 4 albums. And if you want to check me out a little further, go to YouTube and check all that. There's a bunch of songs on there that you can find, and some interviews.
Sing for us.
I believe that's it, right?
Yep.